I'm looking forward to breakfast. I'm so hungry. It's now. You must be so
You go
tired.
soon, man.
You're about to crash and fall asleep, and I'm like,
Oh yeah, man.
I'm
Bedtime
like,
after this.
I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get my bacon and eggs. One of the best sources of traffic and leads that you will ever get is organic traffic, organic leads. And that's because I believe it's one of the most authentic ways to collect leads. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how to get organic traffic and leads using social media. And to help us out, I have with me the founder of Good Karma Business, I should say the co-founder. He's a young fella at 23 years of age. He's already generated more than 1.5 million in online sales. I don't know if you know this, guys and gals, but that puts him in the top 1% of course creators on the planet, according to Thinkific. He's got an amazing course on Twitter, which I'll tell you a little bit later. But for now, we're going to be talking about organic sources of traffic and in particular, Facebook. Welcome, Josh Cousins. How you doing, mate?
Ames, thank you for having me, mate. Thank you for having me. I'm doing very, very well.
And where are you right now? I'm in Melbourne, in Australia, at 7:15 in the morning. Where are you?
Right now, on the other side of the planet, over in France. Over in France.
And it's like 10 o'clock at night or 10:15 p.m. at
Quarter
night.
past 11 right now. Quarter past 11.
Quarter past 11.
Yeah, it's late. It's
OMG.
late.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for doing this. Although, I don't know, you're 23, you're in France, you're just probably getting ready just to hit the clubs now, hit the nightclubs.
Exactly. Yeah. Pop a bottle of wine.
Although it is Monday night, so I don't know how busy it's gonna get. Well, that's cool. Well, tell me, Josh, how did you stumble into this online world? Because you've done so well at such a young age. How did you land where you are right now?
Yes. So I got started back in 2016. So I was 16 years old and
Wow.
just messing around and just got my first job working for my uncle. So enjoyed the first year of how that went. But the second year I started thinking to myself, like £1,000 a month, which is like 1,100, $1,200, somewhere around there wasn't enough for me. And that's when I started dabbling around in the online space. And the first thing that I got started with was Instagram. So I just got started growing pages and just selling them and buying shout outs. And I actually eventually met a guy I founded an agency with, and we were managing. He ended up managing Russell Brunson's account.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to work with Dean Graziosi back in the early stages in like 2016, and that just kind of got my foot in the door. I started making a little bit of money, managed to save up enough money after a year doing that to quit my job. And that's when I just jumped into organic traffic, kind of left Instagram behind and chose Facebook as my platform, my go-to platform. And it's just been on here ever since. So since 2017, 2018 now, since I've been on Facebook. And
Yeah,
it's been
and
a pretty
guys
wild
and girls,
ride.
just so you know, Josh makes his money from selling courses. He also does private training. I'm also just looking at my notes that he's amassed somewhere between, according to my notes, somewhere between 10 and 30,000 email leads as well too, which is quite an accomplishment. When you're using social media, what's your end goal? Are you building the audience to start a conversation, or are you building the audience to get someone onto a landing page to collect a lead? What's your MO?
Mm, good question. For me, it's not obviously we're businesses, right? So there is that part where it's profit driven, but I just enjoy like naturally I'm an introvert, and I've recently been getting into numerology, which is something I never thought I'd say. Yeah, and you've got like these life paths, right? And I'm like life path number seven, and life path number sevens are usually people who when it comes to like in a physical um communication aspect, they're very introverted. But when it comes to online, they're very extroverted. And I've genuinely found that about myself. It's a very great way to just kind of push your opinions out, your perspectives, your ideas, your thoughts. And that's the part that I really enjoy doing. So it's not necessarily just offloading courses, coaching clients, but it's also building an audience for the longer run. I mean, I've been doing this now for 6 years, 5 years on Facebook, and I'm probably going to do this for, the foreseeable future anyway, for a very long time. So it's 50-50. It's building an audience of like-minded people that I can just chat with back and forth, building that goodwill. Obviously, you got the connection side of things as well, and obviously building a business out of it, which is awesome.
I've got a friend who says he struggles with networking, and I'm a bit like you, Josh. I seem very outgoing and all the rest, but a couple of years back, I moved my family to a small country town, and that is so that I could ride my bike to my office in the center of town. And I've got, you know, one or two staff members that come and go, but otherwise I don't really have to worry about the hustle and the bustle. So I am a bit of an extroverted introvert. But a friend of mine was talking about networking events. He was saying he finds networking events so hard. And I said, you know, despite being an introvert, I find them easy, and here's why. And I think that this will resonate with you, Josh, because it's the same with social media. And that is, I say, if I go to a networking event and all I do is listen with the intent of helping people out, like from a generous perspective, hear their stories, where you're at, where you want to go, and then offer up an introduction or a piece of advice, or sometimes just, you know, even making sure that they've got a drink in their hand. Networking events go well. Is that kind of similar to your approach on social media?
100%, 110%. Yeah, it's keeping your eyes and ears open. And when there's an opportunity for you to make a move and to jump into the conversation, that's how I actually grew the foundations of my business back in 2019. That's when I launched my first official program. Before that, I was doing affiliate marketing. And I was just in ClickFunnels, in all sorts of groups, just kind of seeing what the conversations were like. And whenever there was an opportunity, because Facebook was the craze back then, organic traffic and so on and so forth, I just jump in, and I did that for 4 months. And that's when I actually launched my first course. So I was just building goodwill, didn't really think too much about it. And after 4 months, launched a course and did $10,000 in the first week, which was incredible, right? Had never done anything like that before. And that kind of just gave me the idea about just doing this at a much larger scale. So I totally agree.
Because the brain goes, and I've been there. I remember when I did a webinar, and my first toe in the water was a webinar, and we were selling I think it was it was just shy of 3,000 Australian dollars. So I guess that would be about 1,800 euro or pounds. I'm not quite sure what's what anymore. It's all too confusing. But I remember that 11 people signed off the back of the webinar, and I went and I did the numbers. Like you with your 10,000, I went, what if I did that every month?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow.
What if I could do that every month? And then suddenly the cogs began to turn. Now, guys and girls, I hope you observed there. There's actually a step one. There's actually a step one that Josh has given us, and that is join other people's conversations. Because when it comes to social media, we're all like, you know, I need to be the person who's posting. I need to be the person who's pushing the content. Josh started in a very, very humble way, joining other people's conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things, and that's the reason why I actually did it. There was this fear of posting online, putting yourself out there, and it's just such an easy way for you to put your foot in the door. If you have the idea, the opportunity is there for you to jump in, and you're gonna meet people along the way. And most people online are pretty sound people. They're pretty nice, helpful people, right? So, it's just such a great way just to get in and just kind of expand from there onwards.
I imagine as well, too, I know this is the case with LinkedIn. I'm not sure how Facebook works, but I imagine when you're engaging with other people in a conversation and you're engaging with different people on certain topics, the social media algorithms tend to reward you by showing you other people who are interested in that type of information, and they probably show you to other people that are interested in the type of stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And the best thing about it as well, it's the word of mouth that comes from it. That was the thing that really pushed the momentum for us quite a bit. This like, to get word of mouth and referrals takes such a stupid amount of effort. If you're doing it the way I did it, if you have a good product or service, that's going to naturally come with time. But back then it took a couple months, but after a couple months of being consistent with it, spending a few hours a day in Facebook and just helping people out, sometimes we'd have our Facebook group and we'd wake up and there'd be 60, 70 requests overnight from someone who just tagged us inside of a thread on Facebook, inside of someone else's Facebook group, and just a ton of people just came through. So there's
So
that
when you say
aspect.
word of mouth, I know that there's people listening going, word of mouth? Hang on. Word of mouth is something that happens in the real world. You're saying, and I'm gonna unpack this. It sounds like you had a Facebook group and other people were talking about it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And someone tags your Facebook group or puts a link to your Facebook group in another thread and goes, these guys are doing something smart. And then suddenly there's 60 new requests to join overnight.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So we were super niche down when it came to Facebook. So we were breaking down why, just very niche stuff. So why you shouldn't post before you go live, what affects your live and how many people show up live, the attributes that go into your content, the copy aesthetics, all of this sort of stuff. We were going so niche with it that it was very unusual. People weren't talking about that. People didn't really monetize that side of Facebook. So obviously, people who were interested and curious about it, they'd be in the group. What I would do is I would actually manually reach out in the early stages and just send out cold DMs. Hey, I saw you like my post in, let's just say, ClickFunnels, for example. If you found some value out of it, you're probably going to really enjoy my Facebook group. And I just did that every day for 4 months. And after 4 months, there was around 2,500 people in the group,
Yeah,
which is a
wow.
solid amount of people to just launch a product to. And that's exactly what we did.
Can I
So
ask how many what was the name of the group? I know that sounds like a dumb question, but what was the name of the group?
just good karma business. Good karma
Good karma
business.
business. Good karma
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's one of those things where, well, it's good that it's helpful when the name explains what you're going to get from the group. This one had more of a vibe and a purpose than a goal.
Exactly.
But we always like, so one person, one problem, one product. The smaller the problem, the higher the conversion. So
Mhm.
when you're saying, oh, we're going to help you with Facebook Lives, someone who's really specifically interested in that is going to dive on that opportunity because they're not going to find that specific solution elsewhere.
Exactly.
But I'm also thinking that the name is quite elastic. So then did you expand from there? You started off with things that were very hyper niche and then move from there, or?
Yeah. So in the beginning, so it was good karma business, and then there was like kind of the tagline after that. This was the first Facebook group. I'm pretty sure it was like organic Facebook strategies. That was the name of the group, the entire name.
Okay,
We
organic
actually,
Facebook strategies. Well,
yeah,
then I know what I'm getting from when I join that group.
exactly, yeah. And then the good karma side of things was my partner who had actually set this up a couple years prior, and it was more, the amount of people in the online space who can be very predatory in
Uh-huh.
certain aspects, and it was just more just genuinely being nice
Yeah,
people,
you
just
didn't
showing
want to be
up. And
douchebags, and there's a lot of them.
exactly, you don't
Yeah,
need to give me thousands of dollars just to get some help, right? So that was
yeah.
the theory behind it. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, I see one as a step one, join other people's conversations. That's a great way to start. Step two, you went with a group and you made it super niche. And I think that that's really cool. Do you do I mean, like, how much posting do you do on your own profile? Do you have a rhythm for that or a structure?
Mm-hmm. I try to aim for 6 days a week, except Sunday. So Sunday is usually a day off from just posting on social media. And on a profile, it's usually once a day. I think I'm gonna start bumping that up a little bit more, just to kind of, because I feel like we a lot of people just don't do enough output to get their offers, their brand, and their name seen by enough people, right? So yeah, that's really where I'm sitting at right now. It's anywhere between 6 to 10 times a week right now on my profile.
Yeah. Do you have a style of post that you prefer, or do
Yeah.
you rotate between different styles, or how does that look?
Mm, I have a few different styles. I'm still trying to kind of find my footing with what I enjoy doing. I really enjoy kind of just putting my thoughts and perspectives out there just to kind of see. I often use, like, with organic traffic, we as business owners, what is so important is to understand the method behind the content and what the content is used for. Yes, it's used for building an audience, to pre-sell your audience, to sell to your audience, but it's also a great way to find signals. So you can post a piece of content, and Twitter is so good for this. Anything that's fast, TikTok, anything like that, very good, because you can throw a piece of content out. It's either going to do well or not. And these are just signals coming your way. If it does well, you do more of that.
Mm.
So on my profile, for example, there'd be times where it's just very niched down content, like a very niche down idea, a thought or a perspective that I have, and it has nothing to do with the business. This is just going to be me throwing it out and trying to tie it back down to business, right? To my audience, people who are trying to build a personal brand, people who are trying to sell their products and services to their audience, right? So it's very niche, and that's something that I enjoy doing, and that's the aspect of the business that I can be really consistent with.
So there's a thing or two about that I like. I mean, like a lot of people come into our world and we encourage them to post on social media. We're more likely to have training in LinkedIn, but we will sometimes talk about hand raised posts on Facebook, and we'll come back to that. We might use different terminology, but we'll come back to that. But we've had people, and what they do, you're going to find this crazy, Josh, is that we have a private Facebook group for our clients. And they'll post in our private Facebook group to say, hey, I'm thinking of posting this on my LinkedIn profile, on my Facebook profile. What do you think? Should I? Right? And we're like, well, why don't you just post it on your LinkedIn profile or your Facebook group and see what happens? Because Josh used an interesting word. He used the word signals. And what we're doing when we're posting, we're not expecting to suddenly get an avalanche of virality. This is not like the olden, not so golden days where we would spend like a month putting together a magazine, getting everything perfect so we could get it out there. And then we'd cross our fingers and toes hoping that it was going to be a hit. No, these days you just, what did you say? 6 days a week. You put out content, you get signals, something looks like it's working, it's getting a good response, and then you double down on that. Exactly. And then you let the market tell you what it is that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel just like not enough people, like I said earlier on, just don't do enough volume because there's the wrong motivation behind as to why people actually post content. It's usually for a lot of validation, for a lot of comments, likes, and sales, but it's not always going to happen until you have the foundations built out for your personal brand or whatever you're currently building right now. And most of the time I actually just post for me, just to kind of just get like kind of like a diary in a way. And people really enjoy it because at the end of the day, you can be listening to a podcast, a book, you can have an idea. And if you find affinity with that idea, podcast or book that you're reading, other people are probably going to find affinity with it too. And these are the people you want to locate in your audience. Like not posting this carbon copy, very basic vanilla content, right? It can work, but it has a time and place, if that makes sense.
What types of posts are working at the moment for you from a commercial perspective?
So let me actually just open my profile up real quick just to kind of bring. So what I tend to do if I'm trying to sell a product or service, what I will do is I will keep it. I usually aim for a lot of volume. Okay.
Yep. So you can share your screen now if you want to. We didn't discuss this before I hit record, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you can have a look. I think you can also now watch these on Spotify as well. Otherwise, we have a link underneath it and you can hit the screen.
Awesome stuff. So for example, here is like, this is more like a commercial post. So like the hands up post that you mentioned.
Yeah, hand raise. We call them a hand raise post.
Yeah, hand raise. That's it. Yeah, that's it. So here, this is a very basic format, very short, not too much information on what it is. They're only just going to get a specific resource, and it's got 700 comments. I replied to each one, so it's probably like 350 people in there. So that's 350 leads just right there. And this is for a free resource. But what I tend to do is I'm really hard on my follow-up game. So all of these, they all get stored, and I just follow up on a weekly basis, and I just open up the floodgates in terms of the conversation, seeing if they've got their copy. If they've got their copy, how do they like it? If they like it, are they going to get started on Twitter? And I can just go from there, right? So that's one method of doing that. And I tend to do these like a few times a month, just to kind of really just bring the momentum up. And there's another.
I'm just going to break this down for anyone that's listening and they can't see it. Can you bring that back up on the screen again so I can see it again?
Absolutely.
So what Josh has done is he's got a post, and we call them a hand raise post. So what we say is I've got this free, awesome, amazing thing. Who wants it? And people leave a comment. They say, yeah, I want it. They're like, gimme. They'll say, oh, that sounds really great, Josh. I'd love it. And when you get, 767 comments.
Yeah.
when you get your first 10 comments, Facebook goes, okay, well, this seems like it's a popular post. Let's show it to more people. And then you get 20, 30 comments, and then Facebook goes, okay, well, I see that Mary's connected with Barbarous, and Barbarous have 16 friends in common. Let's show it to those 16 friends. And it just goes further and further and wider because people are leaving comments. In a way, we're tricking the algorithm. Can I have a look at the language that you've used there? And I'm just going to read the language. It says, I've grown a new Twitter account to over 10,000 followers in 4 months, reached over 20 million people with my content, generated over $75,000 in sales passively, and I did it in less than 90 minutes in a day. This is so good, Josh. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about speed. We're talking about outcomes. We're talking about effort. I've reverse engineered the entire process in a 2-hour course for you. It includes templates, resources, tutorials. If you haven't got your hands on it yet, let me know if you want it, and I'll send it over your way. And then there's a little pointy hand emoji, and then there's a picture of the of your Twitter profile and a picture of the course underneath. But I mean, like, you're 23 and you've probably done a bit of study. I'm not sure whether you knew intuitively that you were quite literally ticking so many boxes there.
Of course, yeah.
It's probably only 40 words of text, but you were ticking so many boxes.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do. If you're trying to build up hype for a product or service you're trying to sell, it could be even be a free resource. You want to really tick these boxes. You want to keep it short. You want to keep it lean. You want to keep it to the point and what they can get out of it. And you also, like, one thing that I tend to do a lot is just document either myself or my clients' results and really showcase them. Basically being braggy in a way about it, right? And that just really highlights what your clients, potential clients, can get out of it, right? And you mentioned something earlier on about the algorithm. And the really cool thing with Facebook, I posted this on the 16th of September, 2022. It's nearly a year ago, right?
Nearly a year, yeah.
And every time I go back to the comments and I reply to a comment, you get new ones coming in every day. So we've got 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 3 days. So if I reply to this Stu person, it's going to push the post back up into people's newsfeed. So this is just an endless way of me to get leads, and I do this with all of my posts.
Yeah, this is great. When you so the way that you're using this, okay, that there was on your profile. Of course, if
Yes.
you've got a Facebook group, you can do it in the group as well too. And I also find that those types of posts go crazy in groups. You said that then you have this conversation with them via DM. So guys and gals, you don't say, hey, who wants my awesome resource? People raise their hand. You don't just drop the link in the thread. Otherwise, no one raises their hand anymore. They just click the link on somebody's thread and it stops then and there. You send it to them via Facebook's private DM. And what's your strategy from there? Because you said that you chat with them once a week or whatever, forever.
Yeah. So it's a very good point you just mentioned. So this link here, right now, I don't believe, unless you go on my Twitter, because that's a completely different ecosystem. On Facebook, you cannot find that link anywhere. The reason being is because I want people in my DMs. You can put them in your CRM, so you have them stored as a lead. If you throw the link out there, just random people are going to come in, unless you collect their emails. But I also want their Facebook. It's such a more deeper connection, right? You see the profile picture, you see, the stuff that they post. So what I tend to do is I will just send a link off straight away, depending on the volume of the people who want this free resource or whatever I'm giving away. If it's a lot of people, I will just send the link out straight away. And if that's the case, I will just let them know, like, have a great weekend, have a great start to the week, A week later, I'm going to follow up with them and I'm going to ask them, did you manage to get your copy of the training? So a lot of people, when you send them a link to a resource, they could be doing the dishes, driving the car with the kids, with the wife. People forget all the time. And you won't believe the amount of people. I'd say at least 50% who ask me the link will literally say, thanks for reminding me. No, I haven't gotten it yet. Right. So I'm bumping that up again. And there's ways for me to make money inside of the training. So that's a great way to kind of really loop people back around. And then once they've gotten their free copy, it's just simply following up again and again and again with simple questions like, hey, did you manage to go through it? Did you like it? So you're building a testimonial database. So you're getting feedback on the course. And then once you've gotten that feedback, you can see if they've actually set up, in my case, their Twitter profiles. Then I can see what they're doing, how well they're doing. And if they want to go to the extra level, I can either sell them a paid training or we can do some one-on-one with myself. So this specific resource has made over six figures so far in the last year or so, with very little work.
Do you use some sort of CRM that's specific for Facebook? You used the expression CRM before, customer relationship management. But
Yes,
I would
yes.
imagine that there's a lot of, you're having a lot of conversations with a lot of people. It'd be hard to stay on top of who's who in the zoo.
So, yeah, so you're probably gonna really kind of laugh about this. So I have all my stuff in Notion. Okay.
In Notion.
So
Yeah, cool.
in Notion, it's not. I used to have them in a spreadsheet, in a Google spreadsheet, which
Now
was
I'd
just
laugh at you at
terrible.
that.
Yeah. You just got hundreds and hundreds of just columns going down and down and down. So right now it's all stored in Notion. So I've built it out in a way where it's just very seamless and intuitive for me to go in there and kind of find who's who, and that's where everything is stored at the moment.
Yeah, right. I'm sure there's got to be a Facebook CRM out there that someone's built that goes
Yeah,
within there.
I think there is. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that Notion is probably the better way. You can do a lot more and it's a lot more flexible. So I can see why you'd do that. I don't think that's a dumb way. I think that's a smart way.
No, good.
So we're gonna follow up and sell by chat. There's another interesting thing about this as well. I mean, like we teach our clients the value of having an offer ecosystem. So you don't go out to a stranger and say buy from me. So Josh is not posting every day saying buy my services, buy my services. A great way to look at it is to understand that people go from being a stranger to a suspect to a prospect to a client. And if they're a stranger, why not give them a gift? That's exactly what Josh is doing. They're a stranger, give them a gift. Hey, I've got this thing. That's great. Then they go into suspect mode, and suspects are suspicious. They see the obstacles. So Josh has some training. So I'm going to show you how to get from A to B. And they go, wow, this guy actually does know his stuff. Then they go from suspect to prospect, and Josh can say within the training or in a separate conversation, hey, we have some one-on-one support or more deeper, meaningful training. Do you want that? Trust is very high. They say, yeah, I want that. And then someone goes to, when they're a client, Josh can introduce a continuity product or service, recurring revenue, and trust is at the very highest. And then they become an ongoing client. Whereas I see a lot of people jumping on social media and saying, hey, sign up for my service for now, forever, even though you're a stranger, who's up for it? And then they get donuts and wonder why.
Yeah, that's a very good point to put in it. It's you want to build for the long run. If you're doing organic, you want brand goodwill and you want people. What I've noticed, and the reason I actually took this route around 9 months ago, 10 months ago, with what I'm doing is because last year we closed our biggest consulting deal, so it was $60,000, 40K in cash, and that actually came from a guy who was following me for 3 years prior to that point, paying me. And we had never chatted back and forth. But when I got him on a call, he was like, dude, I love your stuff. And he knew so much about me. He basically knew more about me than I knew about myself. Just completely shocked. And I ended up getting my partner on the phone after that. Just ended up going back and forth. And that just showcased, like, if you can show up consistently and you can literally turn people into complete strangers, into people who are literally your friends, right? And that's just incredible. So I just wanted to just really emphasize that point.
Well, according to the psychologists, it takes something like 7 touches or
Yeah.
points of
Yes.
interaction before someone's going to really, really trust you. Can I talk about where does this piece happen where someone goes from, consuming your content or maybe having a conversation with you online? You've got the training product, so they buy the training product. But where does this moment happen where you end up having a conversation with someone? Or do most of the sales just happen online without a conversation at all?
For the higher ticket price points, there is a conversation prior, every single time. That, for me, the reason why I want to have a conversation with someone, I actually eliminated sales calls, so it's all through DMs. Is because we do one-on-one, right? We don't do group coaching. We used to, but we eliminated that. We just thought it was very tedious. And yes, one-to-many can be a great way to impact many people and also make a lot of money. But I just got very burnt out from it, and I just really wanted to find people that I could work with who gave me energy. You probably know this, right? You work
Yeah,
with the right
no,
people in
yeah.
your business, and it's just incredible. But the lower ticket, you got like lower ticket, mid ticket, even like higher ticket courses, those all get sold online. So basically, what I do is I ran a campaign last month, did a little under $10,000 in sales, and that was just posting links in my comment section under my content with a call to action leading to a $50 product with a few upsells.
So you just
And
went to
that
a whole bunch of previous posts because you're so prolific and just dropped it in the comments area.
I just dropped it.
Like,
So that way, like that way, you're not directly sitting there and asking for the sale. It's in the comments. People see it as less. Whoa, like I don't want to be sold anything. It's in the comment section. You can just scroll by,
yeah,
and
and
it's
it's
not in the
and
post.
you point them to a long form landing page, which is
Exactly.
a long one and does
Yep.
ticks all those boxes that you have. Then
Exactly.
if it's going to
Exactly.
be something a bit more meaningful, you either sell by DM. That's interesting.
Mm,
Back and forth,
mm.
back and forth.
Yep.
Um,
So with that, real quick, there is like we have a proposal Google Doc for that. So as soon as we feel like someone is the right fit, we get along with them. There is a good back and forth, whether it's banter or just a good connection. We will send them a proposal, and that proposal usually comes in the form of just us asking them, like, "Hey, we can help you. Would you like to work with us?" And we just send that off.
this is genius, guys and girls. I've seen so many people overcomplicate things, but I have noticed a
Mm,
trend. I hadn't seen it before about November last year. I'm sure it was happening before November last year, but November last year, I went on this fun little trip where I went sailing on a ye olde boat, and we learned how to sail an old boat. But I remember in the hotel the night before having a couple of conversations with people via DM, and both of them sent me a Google Doc. They said, we're having a good conversation. This is how I do business. Here's a Google Doc. Hadn't seen it before then, and I got two in one night. And I thought it was so genius because all it was a Google Doc that I opened on my phone and I read it. And one of them I went, yeah, that's really good, but I can't afford you right now. And
mm.
that was it. And I could say that, love it. Too rich for my blood. Reach out again in 6 months, whatever.
Yeah.
And the other one, I'm like, yeah. And it led to a conversation, led to a podcast recording and some other things as well, too.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
It's such a good way to sell. Like, and people, I met up with a guy in Rome, and he showed me a pitch he got from a pretty well-known guy in our space, and his Google Doc, I think it was for an offer that was 100 grand, and it
Yeah.
was it was like a 2-page Google Doc.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a
Crazy.
fun Dan Martell video that I was watching over the weekend where he says, stop using the word expensive
Yeah.
because if you're delivering value for the right customer, it's not expensive. The ROI proposition is there.
Mm,
I think
love
Anthony
that.
Robbins has a package which is 1 million for the year, and you get eight 30-minute, yeah, 8 30-minute calls. That's what you get. 8 30-minute calls. So you get 4 hours for $1 million. But for a person that's a captain of industry that's responsible for tens and thousands of people, those 8 calls to have Tony Robbins pick you up out of a slump and get you focused and motivated would be worth $1 million.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
expensive to that person.
Mm,
It's
yeah,
just
very good point.
part of
Mhm.
running a business. But yeah, that idea of the document. And I will say, guys and gals, a lot of people spend a lot of time focused on all sorts of things that are the nitty gritty of business. They do get distracted by all sorts of different things like beautiful long form landing pages and the whole bit. If you've got a compelling offer, if you spend, I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hours more developing a compelling offer that sells itself, you won't have to spend 6 hours trying to pull together a long form landing page. Yeah. And it just offers that sell themselves is so smart.
Exactly. And this is where content also plays such a big part. Like I'm sure there's variations of how you can sell stuff. Like for example, if you're running an ad to a cold audience, right? You might need the fancy bells and whistles, but if you've already pre-sold your audience when it comes to with your content, like I do most of my selling in my content, but that's just simply brand building, brand equity, and me letting my audience get into know me. And
Mm.
when it's ready to offer, I can just send them a Google Doc with the offer broken down literally, instead of the fancy bells and whistles, the graphics, all of that sort of stuff, I've done that. I enjoy doing it, but it's very long. I prefer to just launch an offer, see how it goes, just push it out, and then you can literally just print money out of thin air. You don't need to overcomplicate the process, especially if you've built that equity with your audience.
And you don't do a lot of email. When you turn on email, you're gonna kill it, man. I mean, like everything that you're saying is just as applicable to email. Now, you've got some amazing organic Facebook training. I think it was one of your first courses, like the A to Z of Facebook organic, which is crazy. But I think that I twisted Josh's arm before the call, and I think that we're going to give away a link to a Twitter course. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. So this is a Twitter course people usually charge for, and I basically compiled a bunch of really cool stuff in there about how I've managed to do over 100K in sales on Twitter, how I grew my brand on Twitter, and it's completely for free. It's around 2 hours long, and it's really try to condense it down to everything that someone would need to get their foot in the door on Twitter, and you never know where that could lead you, right? So it's
And this is the same course that we heard about in that post, which has allowed Josh to amass a large fan base and also make a nice amount of money too, and it can be consumed in under 2 hours. So there's a link underneath this to that course. Hey Josh, it's so funny because you're from the UK, so you call it Twitter. I'm from Australia, yes. So I call it Twitter. But for our American friends, of course, we're talking about Twitter.
Twitter.
Every time I say it, every time I say Twitter, I have to say Twitter. Then I say Twitter. I can't even quite even talk. I don't know what happened. We dropped the R somewhere along the line, or Americans picked up the R. Who knows? Yeah. So I'm gonna recap briefly, and then I'm gonna just ask you for any final words of advice. But whether you notice this or not, guys and gals, there were actually a sequence of steps. Step one, if you want to get started, just join other people's conversations. Step two, Josh has a group, and he made it super niche. And it was originally called Organic Facebook. Now it's called Business Karma. But you get an idea of what you're going to get from the group when you name the group. I do like the idea of having something super niche. And for our American friends, that's super niche. There we go again. Josh is prolific. He posts 6 days a week. But what I really love about that is that when you're prolific, you can look for signals, and signals can guide what it is that you're doing. And I'm sure that when Josh started, a lot of those posts got no traction at all, but he's begun to figure out over time what's going to resonate and what's not. That's step number 3. Step number 4, start conversations. Now, Josh showed a classic hand raise post. It had 767 people raise their hand. It was September last year. So that's 10 months ago. So we're talking about 70 people a month have said, hey, Josh, I want that thing that you've got, which for most solo experts and other small business owners, that's more than enough leads in a month to get by. You could sign 4 big ticket clients off that in any given month. And importantly, in that post, he talked about what you get. And that was Josh's language as well too. Step 5, he does his selling in the DMs, and he does it with a Google Doc, which goes to show the power of having a tight, neat, compelling offer that reflects the interests of your target audience. Exactly. Any final words of wisdom for the people at home, Josh?
Yeah. Well, with that being said, I mean, if anyone is selling a product or service online, it's imperative that you build some sort of brand. A brand around you, a brand with whatever you're building, because this is an asset that's going to pay you dividends for years and years and years to come. And just to kind of push that point home a little bit more, over the last couple of years in business, I've because I'm still trying to find my footing in the business world, in life, like we all are, right? And I took like 6 months off with things that happen in personal life, and I was like, oh, I can't do the business stuff anymore.
Midlife crisis at 20.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I just too much stress on my shoulders with the business.
That's so right.
I just kind of pulled the plug, didn't do much for 6 months, and just kind of disappeared. And I was like, okay, I gotta get back. I'm burning through money every month. I'm paying for coaches. I'm paying for stuff every month to keep the business afloat. I thought, okay, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna start going again. Within a month, I built up a bit of momentum back up on my Twitter, on my Facebook and stuff, made an offer. I think it was like 18 grand I made within like a week and a half. And that's the power of building a personal brand.
Yeah.
Like in what business can you just take 6 months off, come back and make nearly 20 grand?
Yeah.
You can't. And as soon as you have a powerful personal brand, you can get by. And it's something where once you have the equity, I'm still in touch with people I met 6 years ago on Facebook, 5 years ago, who have paid me over and over and over again. And you can get these super fans. And these super fans, they will literally buy anything you launch. And over the course of 10, 15 years and 20 years and however long it's going to be, it's incredible. It's really, really incredible because you have these amazing connections you can have with people, but also you can have an amazing business that can support you and your family. So
I
yeah,
don't
that's one really big thing.
I don't think a lot of people realize this, but if you're selling knowledge and expertise, but if you've got a business and it's like less than 5 people, 5 or less, you are the product. As far as your customers and clients are concerned, you are the product. It's so hilarious. People will spend $10,000 on a website, right? And the business is called, Acme Widgets and Co. I don't know. It's called Life Services, Synchronicity something or other, partners. And someone, wants to know whether you're any good or not. They'll Google your name and then they'll go check out what you've been doing on social media, or the social media stuff will come up because someone Googles your name. And it's the same as Josh here. I mean, like, the business is called Business Karma. Good business. See, there we go. Good Karma Business. I got it wrong. Good Karma Business. But everybody's going to remember Josh Cousins, and that's the way that it is. It's the same with me. I've got the B2B group, B2B school, B2B dash, but I've had people recognizing James Tuckerman for over a decade. And yes, indeed, those super fans are indeed real, and they become like your friends. It's crazy because you're delivering value, they're getting value, and they become your friends.
Exactly.
I think that this is probably a good way to finish up. I'm just going to ask you one thing. What would be your bugbear? Like, the one thing that like drives you nuts that people do on social media that you go, why do they keep doing that? I want them to stop doing that. Apart from people being trolls and idiots.
Yeah.
But business
Kind of
owners,
fun, right? I would say being a carbon copy. Being a carbon copy of a carbon copy of a carbon copy. It's something where you got to put a bit of originality into it. And I get as to why people will look at what someone else is doing and simply do whatever they're doing because they see it works. It has its time and place, but you got to understand, if you're building a personal brand, you need to have ideas that can challenge your audience's preconceived notions, different ways of thinking, different perspectives. And as you said earlier on, it's like people don't buy into the coach, and they buy into the coach. Like in the industry that I'm in with, audience growth, monetization, that side of things, there is hundreds, probably thousands of options out there for people, thousands of people. They're only going to pay me if they find some sort of affinity with me, period. Either they trust me, they think I'm going to help them and support them, they believe in me and my brand. That's the stuff that you really want to focus on. And you simply can't get there if you're a carbon copy. So it's something where you want to put a lot of thought and attention into your content and how you write, just being able to challenge people's preconceived notions and just sharing your thoughts and ideas. It doesn't even need to be related to business.
and it's very gratifying too. It's good for the soul. So
Absolutely.
Take inspiration from Josh Cousins. Remember the post that he put up before. Take inspiration from that, other things that he does, but then at the end of the day, be your authentic self, because when the barriers to entry are pretty much zero, you're always going to be operating in a crowded marketplace, which means the only thing that no one else can copy is you. Thanks, Josh. Thanks so much for your time. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely, absolutely, James, and thank you for having me on board. It was amazing, man. It was amazing. You're very incredible when it comes to interviewing. It's one of the best interviews I've had. Just how you've maneuvered everything. It's incredible.
Well, I'm just going to take that bit and put it on TikTok. So thanks, man.